If you don't mind taking a seat there, please. And then if everybody is set and happy. Okay, Gareth.
Danny, I just have a couple of the inclusions. Steve said before that he could send people down to South Africa. It's obviously easier. Is it anybody particular they're covering for, or is it numbers and training? How does it work?
Yes, positionally based in terms of the bumps and knocks and so on, and just making sure, obviously, that we get that travel done quickly so that it's not a last minute thing. It's always a delicate one, isn't it? Trying to make decisions on players who we don't quite know fully about yet, but we'll know in the next sort of 24 hours, 48 hours.
So Freddie first, you'd be covering second row. So anybody particularly worried about there at the moment?
Yeah, Tane's got a bit of a bump who's been sort of covering that second row, come back row situation, and obviously we picked up a little bit of a bump with Dowie as well. So those are the two concerns.
Yeah, and hopeful that we can make it and be captain again.
Yeah, he light trained today, which is a real positive. So that sort of ruled him more in than out at the moment, but we've got to see how the next 24 hours goes and how he recovers from the light training session today and how he pulls up. So we'll do that and make the relevant decisions off the back of it.
How would you assess the campaign so far from your perspective?
I think, like getting off to two wins off the back of the win in the last win of the Six Nations was, I think, important for us to get that kind of winning habit or feeling, or making sure we get over the line and understand international rugby is about winning. So I think we took some steps forward with that. I think our Fiji performance was one that we were pleased with. Some further steps forward, dominated in certain areas that you need to against Fiji if you're going to be able to pull off the win. Obviously, the weekend, I think probably collectively we were a little bit disappointed with the performance, and probably the middle third performance, really that sort of middle section of the game where we dropped off. We've addressed and talked about that today and looked at the positives from the game, but obviously drawn the negatives from what was a loss. And I think our standards in terms of, or our demands, if you like, our expectations are going up. And I'm sure with each game and each improvement, we've got to keep talking about how we get over the line in international rugby. And we fell a little bit short against a good Argentina team.
Set piece gone well, better say?
Yeah, I think Scrum has produced a number of penalties and some dominant performances. We scored a number of driving lineouts now and used that as a weapon where we're kind of confident to kick to the corner and use that. Against Fiji, we probably used it a bit further out as well to try and gain some penalties. So I think on the whole, scrum and lineout has gone pretty well. Obviously, this weekend is a very different challenge. The best set piece in world rugby, in my opinion. So we're coming against a real challenge and one that we look forward to.
Gain line, that's obviously so important in international rugby will be again. How do you improve perhaps those stats, getting over the gain line and getting your backs into the game like that?
I think we found, looking back at the weekend's game in particular, I think Matt's spoken quite a lot about it with the boys, is we perhaps didn't roll onto the ball as well as we probably have done previously. In other words, we didn't come onto things with as much momentum, find as much depth to be able to get those sort of more dominant carries. That led to, likewise, at contact area, we weren't particularly dominant there, and we got contained quite easily, let's say, by an Argentina defence that, as you've seen, we've attacked and played some really good rugby, but in this game we perhaps struggled to get that momentum, that Argentina game in isolation. We've looked at those reasons and how we put those right, and we started with a good training session today. And likewise, probably in defence, we've addressed that. There was a few on the weekend that maybe weren't like us, some sets that were a little bit negative that allowed Argentina to get on the front foot. And when you're playing some of the top sides in the world, like these 2 weeks with on the bounce, momentum is, as you just stated, is all important, and we probably came off second in that on the weekend.
Thank you.
Chico?
Coach Danny, such a privilege. I wanted to ask, entering into the very first Nations champion, how do you prepare for a squad like the Springboks? They're very much lethal on transition. You have quite a young squad that's still evolving. How do you prepare as the forwards coach for the team that's you currently said is the best in set pieces?
Yeah, I think that generally, I mean, they're the world champions, as we know. So obviously, getting an opportunity for this squad to test themselves, that's what Steve's spoken about. He said, what an opportunity to get to play the world champions in their own backyard is one-offs and ones that you want to be pitching yourself against. It's obviously a huge challenge physically. When I say physically, I mean right across the park in every area. You have to be able to go against the physicality that South Africa have shown time and time again, and where they get their dominance from. So we're fully aware of that challenge, and we've got to be better than we were on the weekend in those areas to be able to do that. And then as a forwards coach, in terms of the set piece, like we know we from a line-out point of view, we still want to be able to use our line-out weapon in the different formats, but we've got to be pretty clever with it because we're playing against a very formidable line-out defence. And likewise, in terms of dealing with their line-out, they have some unbelievable athletes. They're very effective, let's say, drive as well, and that's an area to be aware of. And the challenge at scrum, I think we've seen in the initial games, are a very powerful scrum. I think squad depth allows them to really move and rotate people around. Is quite impressive, the depth that they now have, and yeah, we'll be bouncing for that challenge and look forward to it.
Durban has quite a unique climate. Tell me, how has that been for your team in terms of the adjustment, and how is that gonna affect you guys' kicking game?
Yeah, look, it's been great so far. We've obviously trained. First day of training was today, off the back of the travel. Boys have got out there, and the setup facilities and the conditions today are good. And we've trained effectively, and kicking game along with in terms of transition is something that we're aware of, that we've got to make sure we're pretty accurate. I think there were some good examples of that on the weekend. That's one area of the game, I think, some of the kicking game in general, and into some getting the ball back. I think we had some good examples within that area, but again, it's a real weapon of South Africa's.
Yeah, Coach Andy, Nikki touched on the fact that it's important that you guys get a fast start. Looking back at what happened on the weekend against Argentina, do you agree with that assessment?
I think every game, I mean, we did start the game with a try, with an attacking driving line-out try, and we got off to a good start. The problem was then we conceded immediately after it, and we've got to be able to double up from taking our opportunities. And I think you've seen when we get into opposition 22, we didn't have a huge amount of entries in there on the weekend, probably half of what Argentina had into our 22. But when we did get in there, we took our points, took our opportunities, and scored tries. And I think we proved that in other games as well. So whilst we got in there early, we took our opportunity, we scored. We've got to double that up with then dealing with the exit and the next set of possessions, so we don't concede straight away, which is what we did against Argentina.
Okay, and everybody's focusing on the physical battle. From your perspective, where do you think West can put the Boks under pressure this weekend? You mentioned the lineouts in your answer to an early question. Where else do you think you can hurt them? And looking at their game against Scotland on the weekend,
it's more aiming to. There's lots of areas of the game that I think we've proved recently. The one I've just talked about, getting entries into opposition 22, and putting our speed of ball into how we attack in that area, as well as set piece or tap plays. You've seen, I think, once we're in there, we've been quite effective. The important bit is how you increase those entries, how you get more of them. That comes down to how you manage how you exit and how you manage the middle third. And obviously we probably didn't do that to the level we wanted to on the weekend, which meant we spent quite a lot of time defending, and therefore not getting those entries. And obviously that's part of our game and our game model that we want to grow. When you get to go against the best in the world, it's important you can put your imprint in terms of your own game model, whilst being aware of what's coming, and how you deal with that. So that's what we focused on.
Okay, and the Boks offer you an intense examination for the full 80 minutes you're forward with the bomb squad. How do you counter that, or what measures do you think you need to counter that intensity for the full 80?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I mean, like I said before, the test of playing South Africa and playing, as you said, for full 80 is one, first and foremost, is a physical one. Being able to physically go toe to toe and be able to fire shots in terms of the way we want to play is important for us in terms of where we currently are and how we're building. I think we've built with progressive improvements game on game, and then we maybe fell off that a little bit on the weekend. So we will focus on ourselves and make sure that we understand how we execute our game model and grow our game model is an important part of our development. And there's no better test than, like I said, away from home against South Africa.
Okay, we have time for 2 questions from the Zoom. Ben, did you want one?
No, I'm fine, thanks. I'll let someone else jump in.
Okay, Rob, you can have one.
Danny, we were all talking about improvement on the scorelines from November in the game in Argentina. Realistically, how much are you hoping to improve on the scoreline from last November against the Springboks? And, you know, I know it's away from home this time, but you seem to have got your act together a bit more. But how much more are you going to be hoping for?
We definitely got to. Well, first of all, we obviously a whole load of contributing factors that led into a horrible scoreline last time we played South Africa. There's no doubt about that. But also, as you know, a very, very impressive performance from them. We definitely want to and need to improve on that scoreline. But at the same time, I think as I said earlier on, we're very aware of the challenge that we have ahead of us, and that we've got to raise our game from the weekend. I think. As we've spoken about Italy, Barbars, obviously into Fiji, we showed some of those progressions. And although the result on the weekend wasn't what we wanted, and there were some disappointing parts, there were also some positive parts from the weekend. And I think making sure that we're recognizing and building on those, as well as improving some of the areas that we weren't quite on it. We'll have to be on it this weekend against a side that can hurt you very, very quickly.
And do you take any encouragement from that Scottish performance last weekend, which, they stayed in the fight for so long, and they actually carried the game to the Springboks, didn't they?
Yeah, they did, and I think there's 2 things that are impressive. Scotland's performance was impressive, and I think they, to the latter stages of that game, they were right in that game and played and really tested the Springboks. I thought what you also saw with the Springboks is over these 3 games, the depth of their squad and the quality of their squad. They've made changes from England into Scotland, from Scotland into us, and you still look at the squad and you can see the strength. And that's what we're growing at the moment. I think we've given some players some opportunities. We do need to grow our squad as well, and I think we've kind of started to see a little bit of depth starting to build into some competition for places, and making our lives as coaches difficult to be able to select is where we need to be, so that the example set by them, that we can build that squad to get to World Cup and feel like we've got the depth that we need.
Not so long ago, we won in South Africa, though.
That's right. Yes. Yeah.
We mustn't forget that.
That's right. And that's been mentioned and discussed as well. And it's a very big win for Wales in a difficult venue. So the confidence drawn from those types of performances and what's happened before are definitely in our minds as well.
Thank you.
Okay, that's all we have time for now. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Johnny.